Today we are breaking down one of the stupidest episodes ever of the TV series Criminal Minds. The episode in question is Season 3, Episode 14, named Damaged. If you have never seen the show before, boy, are you missing out. The series follows a group of criminal profilers who work for the FBI as members of its Behavioral Analysis Unit, using behavioral analysis and profiling to help investigate crimes and find the suspect known as the Unsub. This episode centers around the character Agent David Rossi, played by Joe Mantegna. It's the 20th anniversary of an unsolved case that haunts him still to this day. Two parents are found murdered in their home by their 3 children. Whoever did it is still out there. We start this episode with Rossi having a reoccurring nightmare of the events that occurred the night of the murders. These nightmares have plagued him for 20 years. He keeps a gold bracelet beside his bed with the children's names on it. Rossi is more demented than we think. Jump forward, Rossi had asked Penelope to locate any information she can that would assist him in solving the case. She couldn't find fuck all. He bangs on her door in the middle of the night and interrupts her having sex with a colleague. Rossi explains tomorrow is the 20th anniversary and how he needs to solve the case. For people who don't watch the show, Penelope just sits on her fat ass at a computer every episode, providing information to the team via Google when they need it. We then cut to one of the children. She is now working as a stripper that's just finished work. She gets harassed by a patron who wants his dick sucked. She pulls out a knife and tells him to fuck off. In her car, she locates a stuffed toy. Someone broke in and left it there, and she doesn't even give a fuck. She then drives off, but we see she is being followed by someone in a truck. She is then at home asleep, having a similar nightmare to Rossi about the events of finding her parents murdered. Her brother wakes her and calls her a shit stripper as she only made $53. He mentions how he punched some cunt at work and got fired, but she doesn't give a fuck. The third sibling went out with a strange man the night before and hasn't been back since. They talk about how someone keeps giving them shitty gifts every year around the time of the murders. They believe it's Rossi being a sick fuck giving them the shit as toys for all these years. We then see Rossi sitting in his car outside of a house. It gives the vibe he is stalking the children for some perverted reason. Back at HQ, his colleagues find case files all over the floor in Rossi's office. They ask Penelope what's up because Rossi is normally a clean person and wouldn't leave his shit out like this. She doesn't want to say, but they convince her to spill the beans. She says he caught a flight to Indianapolis this morning to try and solve a double homicide on its 20th anniversary. Of course, the team has nothing better to do and has access to a private jet they can use no questions asked, so they all fuck off to go find him. Rossi then arranges for some cunt from the Indianapolis Police Department to drop off the case files they have. He gets pissy at him that no one has solved the cold case after all these years. The man explains no one has lived in the house for 20 years, and that a cleaning service drops by once a week to keep it clean. Rossi says no shit, Sherlock, that he owns the murder house. The man can't believe how personally involved Rossi is with the case. We can only assume Rossi walks around naked, jerking off from room to room like the psycho he is. The FBI team is now on the private jet looking over the case file. They have no idea why this seems too personal to Rossi, and why the FBI would even be looking into it. They don't have a fucking clue what the fuck is happening. Penelope finally tells Rossi that she blabbed about him to his colleagues and how they are coming out to visit him. He loses his shit. They finally meet up with him at a bar, and he tells them to fuck off, but they don't listen. He tells them why he has been a selfish prick. 20 years ago, he finished investigating some murder case and was being dropped at the airport when this call came through. He offered to go with the officer, and they ended up being first on the scene. The parents were horrifically murdered with an axe, the same axe the father had bought a few months ago to cut down a Christmas tree. This fucked him up so much that he never put up a tree at Christmas again. They warn Rossi the murderer may be dead now and the case may never be solved. He rambles on and explains how the children crying for their mummy and daddy have haunted his dreams for the last 20 years. They all have an emotional moment staring at each other blankly. Back at the children's house, the youngest daughter finally comes home and calls her sister a bitch. She had been out for 2 days without telling her where she was. She tells her, "You're not my mother." Ouch. Rossi shows up with his posse and is pretty much told to fuck off. The kids are sick of being harassed by his sick antics. Their parents died 20 years ago and they have moved on. Rossi is shocked. She then tells Rossi to stop fucking sending them gifts and that they suck shit, and it is a stupid reminder of their parents' death. Rossi is like, "What the fuck, I never sent you any gifts." Rossi is like, "Why didn't you tell me about the gifts? We just thought it was you sending them," they say. The first few were kinda good, but the rest got thrown away being cheap and nasty. She mentions the pickup outside her work and thought it was Rossi stalking her possibly for sex. Now the following is a part of every Criminal Mind episode. Each member of the team will take turns saying a sentence each that helps them to profile who the killer would be. They work out the killer could be a mentally disabled man, someone like Lenny from Mice and Men with lots of strength but just a fucking idiot in general. Rossi is shocked they aren't dealing with a criminal mastermind as absolutely no fucking evidence was left at the scene. Somehow Penelope types into Google something about when the children receive the toys and how some type of clown crime occurs for 2 weeks after, but they don't really explain it much further, and then the crimes move to another city or town 2 weeks later like a pattern. Rossi looks at the shit toys and thinks the unsub might be working at a carnival. The children comment they attended a carnival the day before the murders 20 years ago, the last thing they did as a family. She mentions how a clown made her a balloon animal and followed her around a little but never thought to tell anyone involved in the case. They hunt down the carnival somehow, probably using Google again, and find the owner and ask him about one of the clowns. The guy is dismissive, saying they have no clowns and they don't get complaints from parents about him. Rossi flashes his FBI badge and the owner knows the gig is up. The man explains it was his son and how it's his fault it happened. One of the rides broke down and his clown son wandered off to find the little girl as he liked her and wanted to play more. The son somehow found their address and broke into their house and went into the parents' room instead of the kids. He got mad and murdered them with the axe, and then put them back into their beds. Somehow this is what happened, but it makes no fucking sense. Every year the father takes his retarded son back to the murder scene to make him remember. He has tortured him mentally for the last 20 years, never letting him forget what he did. He even makes his son pick out the shitty toys to give them. The man-child is then hunted down and starts crying for his daddy. Daddy! Like all cops, they start to beat the shit out of him while he screams like a little bitch. Finally, Rossi has closure. The case is solved. He tells the kids he is going to transfer the house into their names, and they can sell it for a fresh start if they want. He also returns the gold bracelet which Rossi creepily stole from the family. She says he can keep it and asks if it's okay that he calls him sometimes and lets him know how they are doing. He has a flashback to how they looked when they were children. He then drives off into the fucking sunset. I find it hard to understand why it had taken 20 years for this case to be solved. When Rossi did his stupid job properly, he solved the case so quickly that he was home for dinner the same night. Oh, and while all this is happening, the other two main characters are out of town talking to a serial killer about some shit no one really cares about, and it's not worth mentioning. I hope you enjoy this breakdown, and if you watch this video this far, you deserve a fucking medal.